Hello everyone, and welcome back to the ups and downs for Star Trek Prodigy's second season. I want to open with a massive thank you to Ellie for looking after episodes 6 to 15. There was just no way that we could have assigned all of this season to one person, and to say Ellie stepped up to the plate does not do it justice. She was awesome. Thank you everyone as well who supported her along the way. She was a bit bleeding deadly. Now, it does help the fact that I have never met someone with such an excitement over all things Janeway related, and honestly, just mention the letters J and C around her and just watch the fits of giggles. That's genuine. Ellie, you're a star. Thank you so much. You are awesome. And everyone else, thank you so much for coming back. We're going to go through episodes 16 to 20 of season 2 of Star Trek Prodigy. If you have missed any of the ups and downs along the way, they're all there. They're all on the channel. Good Lord, we've covered the entire season. Let's get to it. Ascension Part 2 goes right in for the intensity from the opening moments, so please, up for that one. I mean, Voyager has been crippled with what Essentia is throwing at it. And really, I mean, it's another example of just how much Prodigy does not hold back when it wants to show you the threat that is right there in front of you. Things are looking pretty bad for Voyager. You've got Nova Squadron out there, Nova Squadron, featuring the artist known as Dal, are flying around trying to take on some of these drones that are coming from this absolute behemoth of a ship that's firing them down. The Protostar's been ordered to stay out of the fight. Things, they aren't looking great, I'm not going to lie to you. So when Chakotay, I'm going to say quite correctly, decides to fly in and protect Voyager, we get that cute scene of, I'm just glad you defied my orders for once. And he goes, for once? That's an up from me. I mean, in every Star Trek, in every first officer captain scenario, there's always some order defying going on, and quite frankly, Janeway and Chakotay, they were pretty good for it. I will say that Chakotay was not one for defying orders overall, but, you know, when he had to, he did, and it generally tended to work out, like it does here. The drones are those annoying kind of little ship that decides to, I know, we're gonna swarm you, cause you're screwed. But thankfully, Jankum is on hand to bifurcate the tractor beam to then better allow them to grab and destroy them, which again was an up from me. This is not the first time, of course, that we've seen tractor beams being used in a similar way. Of course, goes without saying, don't forget to stick around for cetacean observations, but using it in a battle scenario feels like something that should be done more and more. So I really enjoyed seeing it here. And speaking of seeing it, how gorgeous is this entire episode? This is going to sound like a funny thing to give an up to, but one thing I'm going to particularly highlight that I enjoyed seeing, oh, this is going to sound so bad, is the explosion that destroys Voyager in this was an up from me, because it was so beautifully realized that it felt like, yes, I was watching an actual starship explode before my very eyes. The design that has gone into these episodes and this season overall is just stunning. I'm delighted, by the way, that it was a fake out and that we didn't lose Voyager, because, you know, I love that ship, but it really kicked home. I do have to come in with a down. Essentia is a good villain. Now, these back five, I'm going to be honest, this is sort of a down for not only this episode, but for this block of episodes as well. We have reached mustache twirling levels. And it hurts, I think, a little bit, the threat that Essentia puts across. Now, there are some moments where you're like, oh, no, she is a good villain. And, sorry, to be fair, she is a good villain. And Jameela Jamil plays the absolute hell out of her. I just feel there's a few moments in these episodes now where it's been like, all right, tone it back. You know what I mean? We're getting like, aha, you're screwed now, moments of villainy. And it's like, yeah, that's not scary. So there's some of the interactions, for example, between Essentia and Wesley, which are very much villain by the numbers, I felt. So yeah, for me, Essentia her villainous moments in these episodes, but beginning here in Ascension Part 2, that's a down. Having said that, what we get out of those villainous moments is the Incursor. That's an up, and that's a scary weapon. When it impacts Voyager like that, the radiation that it emits is really quite frightening. Can we get an up for Hero Tysus, by the way, who gets, well, he gets aged up. And we're going to give it down for those bastard Binars who just chucked it out of the room, and they were having none of it. That ensign was stuck under the crate, and they were like, haha, good luck, and ran. Of course, while this is going on Voyager, you've got Nova Squadron doing their very best to battle these drones. Now, the drones do seem to be playing with them, because there's an awful lot of discussion about how the drones seem to anticipate their moves before they make them. Dal gets that line in, it's like they've read the manual. Even I haven't read the manual, which will become very important in a moment. So for me, yes, the drones, I think, surely are playing with Nova Squadron, which itself feeds back into they're probably programmed by Essentia. And yes, mustache twirly villainy aside, that would make sense that she is so confident and so secure in what's happening, she would program them to really screw with them a little bit. So that works for me. There's some great moments. For example, I declined to answer for reasons of morale. Majel is just so, I really, really like Majel. I love that Zeph gets an awful lot to do in this episode as well, because he's obviously one of the smaller characters of the season, but I really think he's great in this exchange. Some of the bits that Nova Squadron do, I really like. For example, I love what feels like then the obvious thing is like, right, well, abandon your training and just, you know, do some wackadoo moves. That was an up for me. Just hearing Majel say wackadoo, that worked for me. And again, it ties so well into Dal as a character. This is exactly what I would see Dal doing in this situation. So fair play for that. The one that gave me pause, this is not a down, but what gave me pause is the Boothby Supernova, which obviously we know what I mean, like Boothby introduced in the first Judy, brought back again in the flesh, Ray Walston, love you. Nah, there's no way I could ever give anything Boothby related a down. It's the idea of Ray Walston, the gardener, designing a move called the Boothby Supernova. So obviously it was named in his honor. That's my headcanon, that's what I've decided. The emotion and the crux of the episode is Zero's journey, if you like. Zero's body has been in decline ever since they left that planet, and it reaches its zenith here when Zero realizes that only they can deal with the radiation from the Incursor, because everyone else is going to age to the point of death, whereas Medusans age in a different way. And also Zero knows that their body comes with a time limit. Now, they had perhaps hoped that they would get longer with their body, but that's not to be. So Zero volunteers to go and deal with this radiation. And I really felt this. There was something about Zero's just journey that I really connected with, that really spoke to me. And I felt myself getting very emotional watching Zero's sacrifice in this episode. Up, quite obviously, an up. And really, really, it hurt watching Zero in pain. To be honest, that is a sign of everything coming together in the right way. Good acting, good writing, good design, and good plotting to get us to this point. So like when, for example, Zero slides down a few inches away from the command panel, I was like, oh, that's game over. Oh no, like, you know, this is the kind of moment where you do not get a margin for error. It really, really worked for me. And I feel where we got to in the end with Zero's new old body, if you like, I think that is a heck of a journey, because Zero went through this discovery and this experience and obviously displayed themselves to be so willing for self-sacrifice that when we effectively get back to the Mike Wazowski shape of Zero, but then learning that Zero is able to touch and to feel right here, right in the comm badge is where I felt that. And everything about this wasn't up. I'm giving an up as well. Jankum Pog, Jason Mantzoukas did so much with so little in this episode. You know, when Jankum is there trying to speak to Zero over comms and then gets no answer. Fair play. Fair play. The episode, of course, ends with Voyager and the Protostar overcoming Essentia and the weapons. They survive. And, you know, quick kind of sum up, if you like, Jellicoe reveals that Starfleet's blood too thin, they can't come to help, which means Essentia learns that, okay, effectively Voyager and the Protostar are on their own. And so even though she's got Wesley and is able to see some versions of the future, hence our Voyager explosion, she's able to learn some things from him that he didn't intend for her to learn. Good stakes, like how it ends, sets us up very nicely for the next episode, Brink. This is, in my opinion, this is the setting the stage episode. It's getting our characters where they need to be at a certain time. These episodes are always a challenge because we know it's not the finale, so that will affect the stakes in some way, but also, like, there is still a lot of excitement going on. We have our away mission to Solum where we split the team in two, and I think that was the right decision, no matter what Wesley Crusher has to say about things. My first up of this episode is the absolute starship porn that is the Voyager A and the Protostar flying side by side. I know we've seen it a few times now at this stage, but from the clip of the Voyager A that was released, God, almost a year ago now, longer than a year ago now, all I wanted was to see these two ships fly side by side, and I'm not over it yet. They look fantastic. On board Voyager, we have the big discussion in the observation room, war room, big room at the table in it, of what to do next. Jellicoe has ordered that Voyager and the Protostar do not engage. They do need to get to Solon, but they are not to engage with the Vau N'Akat. So the meeting effectively becomes, how can we circumvent his orders without actually disobeying his orders? And, you know, I think they come to a fairly straightforward way of doing it. Basically, what we get here is our Prodigy crew from season 1 reforms with the addition of Majel. I really cannot say, she's obviously this show's T'Lyn. I love the addition. Everyone's back in their season 1 costumes, with, of course, the exception of Zero, I guess. This works for me because for so many reasons, what makes Prodigy work is our core cast of characters. Now, the returning characters from Voyager, and of course Wesley Crusher and Jellicoe, they all serve to add just fantastic spice and really deepen the scope of the world that we're in. But it's about our core cast of characters, and that's really what we get in this episode. I do, of course, have a couple of downs. One is this force field, this cloaking force field that Starfleet has given them. Why didn't they just use the duck blind technology that Starfleet's had for decades? You know, or like, remember the suits that Data was wearing in Star Trek Insurrection? Surely, could they not have replicated a few of those? That's a down for me. And I will go so far as to say, if Starfleet has, said, right, officially, Starfleet's not doing this, therefore you can't have Starfleet technology, they will disavow you, they give them cloaking technology you know what I mean? This is obviously a fun addition because we get those couple of funny scenes of bumping into things and popping out of the force field. I get it, I do, but there was technology there already. I did like that when Gwyn volunteers for, come on, she's got to be the one to lead this mission. And Janeway replies, you're going to be our, the ace up our sleeve, ace in the hole. I don't know, I don't play football. And Dal is outside listening and he says, it sounds like they're playing poker. That was an up from me. That really works. The real strength of this episode is Dal and Gwyn. In fact, first of all, there's an up for Dal and Gwyn for this episode because of how they have developed in the time that they've been together and apart. And you have seen how they have come to respect each other, where it would have been more evident a bit earlier on from Gwyn. What we're really seeing is how Dal has learned to trust her and therefore doesn't, as much as maybe would have before, rush headlong into things. She has been wonderful for him. I think, you see that exchange on the transporter pad where Dal is like, I am here to support you, you are in charge. I mean, this is something that Dal version 1 wouldn't physically be able to say. And I've really enjoyed watching this journey together. You know, obviously more episodes to talk about, but wherever it goes in the future, this is, I think, is a core scene, a core episode for the two of them. And then I do want to go a little bit further as well, just to really highlight Dal's journey. You know, you can pull up a clip of me covering the first few episodes of season 1, and I wasn't exactly Dal's biggest fan. I'm just going to say it right there. I just felt, oh, here we go, brash young cadet. Obviously, watching him grow over the 2 seasons has been a delight. And where he's got to now, he is Starfleet. The episode itself is pretty simple. It's a prison break episode. You've got Gwyn's team are going after Wesley, whereas Dal's team are going to go after Iltheron and the rest of the captured Vaunicat. And, you know, we get some fun scenes. Obviously, the easiest train prison break ever, so that's fun. And also, I did like, there was a lot, you know, knocking out the guard outside Wesley's prison cell and Zero puppeteering them. Actually, that's an up. I enjoyed that one. That was good. Just overall, it just felt like a, you know, and I know that sounds really harsh, but we've only got X amount of episodes and minutes to work with. So yes, we set the stage, they rescue Wesley. Wesley reveals that, whew, thank God, well, this was all part of the plan. Which I really I like it because it's not like, oh, okay, well that guts the entire point of everything. It's like, no, you still have to do these things and you have to pull them off. You know, you don't get a sense of predestination paradox or anything like that. You know, you do get a sense of, yes, you need to play your role. Even if someone is more aware of your role than you are, you still have to play it. And it works. Also, bloody love. We need another way out of here. Rock, if you would be so kind. Because Rock, who is a genius, is also super strong, and sometimes you just gotta punch a wall out. Up. Of course, it does then set us up in the end, you know, you get that kind of, oh no, I meant physically you all had to stay together. What are you doing splitting up? This was terrible. And it's a bit panicky. This, yeah, obviously it's, you know, for setting up stakes for the next episode. But one thing it definitely does do well is that it takes away Wesley's knowledge of what's coming. And that does work for me. So I will say, yes, Wesley's wee little freak out here does the biz. The group is reformed, not in a positive way though, because there's Essentia and a ton of guards and a bunch of drones and a couple of dreadnoughts, and you're like, beans. But Gwyn is able to, you know, give Dal a nudge, and Dal picks up on it straight away. Again, thank you for listening, thank you for growth. To throw the wee little secret side-to-side transporter, again, more Starfleet tech. Why didn't they just use the duck blind tech? To Wesley, who gets himself and Iltheron out of there. You know, Iltheron has to be saved. He is the vocal, you know, he is the snake's head. English, difficult. You know, he's the big cheese when it comes to, you know, the dissident movement against Essentia's new totalitarian regime. And of course, Wesley's Wesley. You can't leave him in the hands of Essentia. They beam back up to Voyager. Wesley passes out. Overall, I think quite a decent episode. Not quite as good as Ascension Part 2, but plenty of good stuff in there. And let's jump into now Touch of Grey, which, by the way, I see you episode title. I see what you're doing. Touch of Grey starts with a, you know, one of those 1 hour ago kind of flashbacks where Janeway and Chakotay are talking in Janeway's quarters. Also, Janeway apparently using an Apple Mac in the 24th century. Fair enough. What was it, my buddy James Amy tweeted out a while ago, it's like, nice to see that USB-C is still standard in the 24th century. I like that. I like that. What we get though is a really cute scene of Chakotay presenting Janeway with her old comm badge, reminding her that it's the anniversary of her first command. And here's something that's really trippy. Oh, by the way, Voyager theme plays, immediate up. That's really trippy. For us, it's been, what are we at now? Coming up on, it's 30 years since Caretaker aired. Do you feel that? That's your lower back crying out for ibuprofen. But in universe, it's only been 14 years. And it's a bit trippy. We were talking about this on the podcast. It was like, hang on, what? Yeah, so once that sort of mind trippy, you know, passed on, We move on with the episode and, we kind of catch up on ourselves again. Wesley beams in with Iltheron and we go down to sickbay, and John Noble, I just like the way he speaks, the way he pronounces the word Wesley. Wesley tried to save us all. Sorry, I love it. I went to a happy place there. And I just love this scene as well of, we have crossover, iterations of franchises here. Because you've got Iltheron of Prodigy, Wesley of The Next Generation, and of course, the main cast of Star Trek Voyager. And yeah, sorry, my inner geek was very happy at this scene. Of course, I can't be too happy because, the kids are in danger. So they decide to set up an away mission, and look, I'd only be giving out to myself if I didn't do this. Down. It's an away mission. Let's send our admiral, our captain, our only traveler, and our chief medical officer. Stop doing this, Starfleet. We have to find a way to get down to the planet. Obviously, Voyager and the Protostar can't just fly in there. So, thank you, Protostar, for your vehicle replicator. They build a Vau-N'Akat glider, flyer, ship, which works, but also allows us to bring hologram Janeway back in this episode. She's been there, don't get me wrong, but she's been sort of set dressing for a little while, whereas here she becomes a fully fledged character again, and it's great seeing hologram Janeway and Admiral Janeway in that lineup together, so that really works. And then it's also great as well seeing hologram Janeway and the EMH together too. The EMH going, oh, it's very strange to, get to know Janeway's holographic twin. And that hits slightly harder coming from the EMH. Now, while the EMH is technically the holographic twin of Lewis Zimmerman, he is very much his own person, as is hologram Janeway. And it is sometimes good, I think, to remember in these moments that, yes, actually, these things are not just automatic. We don't just go, oh, of course. It takes a second. I do feel dreadfully bad, though, for hologram Janeway, who says she's read all of the Doctor's Holo novels. I'm going to come back to that one. Down on the planet, the kids are locked into an arena thing. It kind of looks like, if you've seen the most recent Hunger Games film, or Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, that one, it looks like almost a rendering of that arena. And I do have things to say about that, but before we get there, we're flying down to the planet and we need to get past the guards. So the EMH, as he can, disguises his voice as Jimmy Simpson, as Dreadnought, to get past the guards. Everything about this for me is a down. So there was no verification whatsoever. So let's be kind and say that perhaps Wesley was able to, have a verification code or something. Almost makes me think of Return of the Jedi. It's an older code, sir, but it works out. The Doctor says, we're requesting permission to land at these specific coordinates. They say, absolutely not. The very helpful Vau-N'Akat response is, absolutely not, because that's the exact coordinates where you need to be to stage a rescue party. Thanks. And then says, sounds like a real humdinger. I'll save you a seat. And they say, all right, off you go then. What? So he's fine. There was no issue. What's the point of any of this? I like things to make sense. I do actually have another down in this scene as well, and that's, can anyone just answer a bloody question? I spoke to your mother. How is she? You should talk to her. Great, he's got that playing on his mind for the entire mission. Janeway. Come on. Once this ship lands on the planet, they have to basically hoof it 2 kilometers between the ship and the arena. And we do get that funny exchange of, the EMH is fine. Wesley gets that great line about, I'm so used to stepping through temporal distortions, I forgot what it's like to use your quads. Yeah, take it up. In the arena, it's good. You've got to have your threat. Essentia is, mustache twirling, playing with the kids. It's grand. How on earth did Essentia capture a loom and get a collar around its neck when a loom touches you and erases you from history? So let's be kind and say, well, obviously, Essentia wasn't going to go near it herself. She sent however many guards, and perhaps they overpowered it, and presumably a lot of them were killed. There was a bit of a logic for the yes, the loom is an immediate threat and it's scary, and yes, that's going to get stakes there. There was just too much of a logic gap as to how they got it, so that's a down from me. I like that we didn't linger on, you know, oh, it's injured, oh, perhaps if we just understand each other. We didn't do that. You know, Zero can sense this loneliness in the loom. And, you know, but Jankum was just like, that doesn't make it our friend. And I do appreciate that. You know, Gwyn tries to distract it by offering herself up as food, not by trying to... Okay, that's the point they're trying to make. They don't waste time going, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. At closest, they go, can we use my enemy to attack my enemy? Which is effectively what they do. As part of the rescue plan, the EMH masks himself as Janeway, which is, yeah, pretty clever. That works for me. I do like here that Essentia doesn't go, I will tell you my entire plan and I will try and... No, she just shoots him. I like it. Outside, you've got Wesley and Chakotay getting to know each other slightly better, setting up this escape. If I'm honest, the episode felt like it ran on a little bit. Because, you know, there was never any question as to whether we were going to get the kids out of there. Down, the loom escapes and kills everyone except Essentia. Plot armor. But does set us up for a really good, you know, kind of like, wah, kicking into the two-part finale. The Civil War is now underway on Solum. Iltheron is putting out the call to arms. Essentia can see it all collapsing around her, and you do really feel that sense of, oh, I think she might be more dangerous now. Oh, God. What I did like as well, how the episode ends, is Janeway's log, where she kind of reminds people that boldness is not just for the young, and about how everyone came together to effectively, well, not win the day, because there's still an awful lot to do, but to certainly win the mission. That, I think, is a great message to take away from this episode, that it's the team, it's not just the individual. Overall, touch of grey. I did enjoy it quite a bit. I like how people played their roles. The logic gaps for me, I've discussed already. So I'm feeling pretty confident moving into Ouroboros Part 1. In the first part of our two-part finale, we get Technobabble. Absolutely love it. You know, Rock just reels off, here's what we got to do. And Michelle, the Vulcan, goes, so you want us to find the right wormhole? That's what I said. Yeah, I like that. One of my favorite lines of all 5 episodes is when they say that to input these new coordinates, to create this wormhole that needs to be created. I'm jumping forward slightly, but you know, they need to get down to the planet because they need to actually shut down Essentia's wormhole generator. But they have to do it by, you know, heading to the platform on Essentia's generator. And Jankum just goes, well, that's just inconvenient. Up. That was a strong contender for my Latinum up. I'm not going to lie to you. That's how much I loved that. This then becomes, you know, an episode effectively of 2 and then 3 teams, which I feel this one does it a lot stronger than what we've seen previously. The first one, and possibly my favorite one, is the one aboard the Protostar. You've got Wesley, you've got Zero, you've got Rock, and you've got Majel trying to figure out how to close the time loop to send the Protostar back to Tars Lamora while also shutting down Essentia's rifts, which are opening over all of these different Federation worlds. No small order then, but if I was to sum up all of that, it's one of Wesley's lines. It's, don't close your minds, open them up. And why I love that so much is that I think that could be not just a tagline for Star Trek Prodigy, but for Star Trek. And to have Wesley Crusher be the one to say that line really, really works. And you know, in fact, it's you know, it's a line in a group of other fantastic scenes, but that just, I needed to really give that one its moment. On the bridge of the Protostar, Chakotay is there doing his best to zip by Essentia's fleet. He's using remodulated shields from his Maquis days. Nicely done. But also, what you see is the exchange between Hologram Janeway and Chakotay. Just a fun fact for everyone. Sorry, there's nothing to do with the episode. I live quite rurally in Ireland, so every now and again I have to pause because I'm just like, there goes a tractor. Anyone who lives rural, let me know in the comments. The exchanges between Hologram Janeway and Chakotay, they feel real, as well they should. They've spent years together. Obviously, in, you know, the last flight of the Protostar, we discovered like, oh yeah, Chakotay was on that island for 10 years, you know, with only hologram Janeway as companion. And they are effectively an old married couple, and you can see them bickering, and it's coming from a place of fear, particularly from Janeway's point of view, because as she knows, to restore the timeline, the protostar has to go back to Tars Lamora exactly how the children found it, which means Janeway can't remember them. And she's well aware of that. She's the first one to vocalize it. English is difficult. And Chakotay goes, oh, well, we'll just save your program. And she's like, you know my program's too big. And it's like, oh my God, with everything else going on at the moment, and now we have to, you know, kind of face this emotional truth as well. Up for it happening, but I'm sad now. Down on the planet, you've got our away team. You've got Gwyn, you've got Iltheron, you've got Dal, you've got Jankum, and you've got Murph. Now, it's their job to, well, screw with Essensia's plans and also reprogram this emitter to create, you know, the wormhole that they need. So very quickly, of course, they are discovered by Essentia and some dreadnoks. So Iltheron is taken out of the team. He's gonna, you know, effectively with a phaser, he's gonna hold off some of the guards. Cool. Then it becomes Gwyn versus Essentia. Yeah, and then you've got Jankum, Murph, and Dal have to effectively take on a dreadnought. I like a lot of this for several reasons. One is we get some great scenes from Murph. Murph is a hard character because Murph doesn't speak, so it's sort of hard to identify, I guess, with what Murph's about. But also, he's written so well. D. Bradley Baker just makes the noises so well, I guess, for want of a better description, that we really, really care. And we know Murph is an experienced fighter, so Murph versus Dreadnought works. Jankum, who is, God love poor Jankum, as he said in one of the earlier episodes, how is Jankum supposed to work under these circumstances? He's been a busy engineer, and he does a blinder here as well. Dal, again, growth. Dal's self-sacrifice here, because, you know, long story medium, he has to get up another platform again, basically walking through a whole bunch of temporal energy, which could blow him into a million pieces. And he does it because that's now the kind of person Dal is. Everyone gets their moment in these scenes. And there's a moment when Murph takes on Dreadnought, and Dreadnought looks like he's about to kill Dal, but, you know, Murph knocks him off and down into the energy and then decapitates Dreadnought, and he's fine. Murph's a badass, and I love him. I just love him. The battle between Gwen and Essentia, I like that Essentia's starting to lose control a bit here. It literally goes, why won't you die? You know, there's no impassioned speeches. This is not about convincing one or the other. This is a death match, and you really feel it in this show for children. On the protostar, they figure out that the wormhole that they can't account for was actually created by themselves. They figure out the paradox, the chicken and the egg, if you like. And then Wesley says it. Well, first of all, Zero goes, hoot hoot, and Majel goes, hoot hoot indeed, taken up. Now, then Wesley says something that is an up-down for me. Up is when he discusses, as long as you make sure the big stuff happens, the little stuff isn't important. So up, they figured it out. They, you know, effectively they talk about fixed points in time, if you like. The down is that, Wesley, I've seen what this does to Time Lord Victorious, okay? This is a path you don't want to go down. There is no such thing as small things in history, all right? You got to keep an eye on yourself. You're going to be the new Doctor Who, because I've decided you are going to be, then you need to be aware of that. They send this information to Dal, Murph, and Jankum. Okie dokie, all good here. Gwyn is getting 7 levels of crap beaten out of her by Essentia, but also she tries to get her heirloom back off Essentia, and it's not working. So when all else fails, just pick up a f***ing pipe and beat the shit out of her. I like the ferocity of this fight, because this is, the stakes are now genuinely, they're too high to fail. And she does get Essentia back to, by the way, both of these characters can fall because they get all the way down to the bottom of that tower. And Essentia looks like she's going to get the upper hand, and she's doing her, this is why I'm doing this. My solum is gone. I will shape reality to suit me. And you then see the other Vaunukat come together to give their strength to Gwyn. And this works on so many levels. Our will is yours, obviously taken up there. But from Iltheron, sending his strength to young Essentia, who is revealed to be helping the insurgency, having seen what a monster she could become. That itself is an up, but also Gwyn, as shown in the first season, is a clone, a project, has been billed as not a real Vau N'Akat, when really she is one of the best examples of what a Vau N'Akat really is. They come together as a people to give her the strength to shut down Essentia. And at this point, Essentia's done. And you can only hope that because her younger self has seen how things could go, that she will go down a better path. And I believe she will. But this was a powerful moment. Again, I was rewatching this the other day on a plane, and I was trying to sort of hide the fact that I was there really misty-eyed watching this, as somebody sitting on a Ryanair flight beside me going, is he just uncomfortable in his chair or what? But this was a powerful moment for me in this season. All things are done. The wormhole is then created. You have Jankum looking up going, ain't she a sight? And you've got Dal looking down at Gwyn going, yeah, she is. Up. Young love. What's not to love? Of course, needless to say, there is a ton of loom about to come through this wormhole. It's not good. Leads us into Ouroboros Part 2. Ouroboros Part 2 is one of the strongest episodes, I think, that Star Trek's done in years. Spoiler, I guess, that there's going to be more ups than downs here. So I want to get my down out of the way quickly. Essentia's What Have I Done? It's cliched. That's it. I just wanted to get that out of the way really quickly. The villain has their what have I done moment. Okay, that's fine. It's all hands on deck to try and defeat the Loom. Now, the Loom are one of the scariest creations, I think, Star Trek's done in a long time. Some of the reasons I didn't love Touch the Grey so much is because, we sort of had to neuter the Loom just for this episode. But I will say, they come back swinging here. And they are properly frightening. I mean, they get down as far as Solum. Thankfully, Voyager and the Protostar are shielded against them, but time is running out. You've got to move quickly. And you see an awful lot of the Vau N'Akat who were at each other's throats mere moments ago coming together to defeat a bigger threat. This works, and the way it's paced, I think, is really, really well. I like how we get our crew back aboard the Protostar. We have to get the Protostar through the wormhole. Chakotay's going to pilot it. Gwen says, I'm piloting it alone. Technically, you're not supposed to speak to a captain that way. I think we're going to look past it for the stakes that are in it. And Dal says, this is the reason you needed us all together, to Wesley. And Wesley's like, oh my God. Oh, by the way, absolutely not. No. That reason's still to come. I see you sequel baiting. I see you. Trying to pilot through the Loom down the wormhole. It's impossible for autopilot. It's impossible for standard Starfleet pilots. I tell you who it's not impossible for. Gillian the Whale. Take it up. Oh, they use cetacean operations. It's not just there for the crowd. Years I've been waiting for this. It's almost like we have a whole section of the videos kind of about how much we like that. A lot of things happen then in quick succession. For example, the revelation that yes, we have in fact saved hologram Janeway, that the reset version is effectively going to be a new character, if you like, whereas the one that we've got to know over season 2 and that Chakotay has spent years with will continue on. Loved it, absolutely loved it. That was an up. Now, I was sorely tempted for this video to wear the All Good Things comm badge that Chakotay has been wearing for the entire few episodes, but I went with this one because this comm badge that Dal makes, he takes time to go and find his Protostar comm badge, for me is, I think, one of the most beautiful symbols of Star Trek Prodigy. And taking time to go and get that, to pop that back on his uniform, that was an up for me. There's really no time to breathe. We're fighting the Loom, we're firing phasers. Thankfully, they don't get aboard either starship, and while they do erase some Vau N'Akat, we get through them with enough time to close the loop and to save the rest of history. But I must mention Nami Melumad's amazing score for Prodigy overall, but particularly for this scene. That is a whopper of an up. It is beautiful. absolutely beautiful, and I cannot wait for the soundtrack for season 2 of Star Trek Prodigy. We get then a gorgeous montage. Yes, there's clips, and sometimes clips can be like, oh, okay, right, we're kind of running out the clock. I don't feel that here. It feels like all of history is sewing itself back together again. We get scenes on Tars Lamora, we get that voiceover of Dal and Rock, or I say growl over, of Rock discovering the ship. The moment where, of course, Dal has to place the comm badge down on the bridge of the protostar so that it will be found by Rock. Chills, just chills for this entire sequence. And then, we get all of the, this collection of scenes of them together. For me, yeah. Oh, Prodigy, you've made my cold dead heart beat again. And if you thought that wasn't enough, seeing Wesley Crusher reunite with his mother, obviously that's an up. Just that moment, added to, technically, this is part of a story so removed from Prodigy that, I would not have blamed them for not including this. And yet, it is a crucial scene for Star Trek. Because what do we know about Beverly Crusher in the years after Nemesis? Well, we see Wesley we hear Wesley meet Jack Crusher. We see that she's in England. All of those things tie up very nicely. But we know that he had to stay out of the, out of historical events. And that never really sat right with us. Because, why would Wesley abandon his mum, even if it is for the greater good? No. A scene like this, one that even says, I don't know how long I could stay in this reality, is crucial. It is, as a Trekkie, I love it. As someone who enjoys good story, I love it. And as someone who enjoys good performances, Will Wheaton and Gates McFadden nailed this scene. This was easily our dilithium up of the season. Just really quickly, for those who may not know, a dilithium up is something that we thought was so strong, so well done, that it actually removes it down from the down counter. It cuts then to the EMH going, this is the end! And then that poor officer, if you look, that officer that goes, what? He's had a hell of a season. He was the one who was, minding the class when Rock Talk scooted out back in the pilot. There's other times as well where he's just been in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm giving it up for this officer. He's had to put up with an awful lot in season 2. The Doctor's finished a new Hollow novel while he was operating, which is a bit worrying. You get the revelation, of course, that Captain Chakotay is now in command of Voyager A, taken up. Also, those threads look very nice on you. Yes, I'm already looking for them. Dr. Erin makes another cameo in Temporal Mechanics, telling the kids to throw away those pads for Temporal Mechanics 101 is done. Now we're going on to 201, taken up. Yep, the ups are absolutely flying. And what we get then is Janeway retires to Indiana, which she has completely earned. And the kids are all sitting there going, yeah, okay, we feel like we're really part of the academy now. We're in good standing. We like where it's got to, and yeah, we've learned so much. Happy First Contact Day, everyone. We start to hear the alarms. I'm gonna be completely honest. I didn't think they'd go there. I really didn't think they'd go there. And whopper of an up for having the courage to go that dark. Because, of course, this is First Contact Day. This is the synth attack on Mars. This was the catalyst for all of the events of Picard's first season. So locking in the two shows like that closes the gap there and also reminds you of the galactic stakes. As if we needed reminding, what with the Loom and Solum and everything, but, this is Star Trek. On a Thursday, we've got a temporal paradox. On a Friday, it's an all-out war. And this, for me, having the strength to go there, seeing what they do with it, and closing that loop is my Latinum up. I know it's odd doing a Latinum up after a dilithium up, but this needed a special up for this one. Then we get that exchange where Chakotay flies to Janeway and says, you've been ignoring your comm badge. She's like, yeah, I'm retired. And he's like, So you haven't been watching the news then. I get the feeling that this is all within a space of minutes. There's no way Janeway wouldn't have known if you give her enough time. Like I literally think she was out in the garden and didn't hear the comm badge. And this is just how quickly they need to be mobilized. We see the admirals and other officers together. So Jellicoe is here as well. And Jellicoe's conversation with Janeway is a reminder, especially because he said, I've already informed Admiral Picard that Starfleet has to scale back operations. He didn't take it well. Janeway's reaction is very, very important in how different it is. The point has been made online, but I do want to parrot it, that Picard's resignation with the cancellation of the Romulan relocation effort was something of an act of vanity. As he says himself, I never thought they'd accept my resignation, and then he sees it through. Whereas Janeway's reaction is to cut through the BS. What must we do? How can we do it? And she immediately sets up a new program for exploration because, as Jellicoe says, we don't have the ships to do exploration. We also, I must give an up to the line about the comm badges, which I know is a very special, niggly bugbear to Aaron Waltke, explaining the difference as to why in Picard season 1, these flashback scenes were wearing the Voyager Nemesis era comm badge, whereas then the rest of the fleet were wearing the All Good Things era comm badge, and they managed to explain that away quite nicely. Everything about this works. Jellicoe and Janeway, that's an up as well. The uniforms as well, which I love those uniforms from the flashbacks of Picard season 1. They're an up from me as well. But what's crucial is that this massive plot line, one that, as I say, is the catalyst for an entire other series, doesn't overshadow our Prodigy crew. So when they are summoned to come and meet Janeway, we don't get a sense of, I don't have time for you right now. It's like, no, they are crucially important. This is their story. Because what happened with the Academy when that happened on Mars, which in, I suppose, a galactic sense, is right next door. The revelation of the USS Prodigy was fantastic. Thank you for bringing a Protostar class back. The revelation of the new uniforms, shut up and take my money. But just knowing that with everything else going on, they haven't forgotten about the core tenet of Starfleet is to seek out new life and new civilizations. And that's what the Prodigy is tasked with doing. I think it is a beautiful ending to the season. And as dark as it went, that hope is you. But that light that the crew of the Prodigy, with the first officer Dal, whopper of an up just for Dal's journey and for Dal going, I will be your number one, and for Gwyn being in command, I think that is a perfect finale to this season. Quick question, has Murph just been walking around naked this whole time? Hilarious. Up. If, and I really don't want it to be, but if this is the end of Star Trek Prodigy, I will say I think this is an excellent finale. I want set course for season 3. I want all that to happen. There's no question there. If we don't get one, I will say to you, they stuck the landing. After all that, would you care to join me at Citation Observations? I may have given myself a promotion between the ups and downs and the Easter eggs, but sure listen. And don't you worry, Ellie was very much promoted as well. Now, let's dive in. Ascension Part 2. There's that entire exchange about Chakotay defying orders. Now really, you could just take your pick of the amount of times. As we discussed before, it's not like he did it all the time and they tended to work out. I'm going to say Scorpion Part 2 is a good example of when Chakotay defied Janeway's orders. Now, the incursor weapon itself is very like the temporal torpedo that the Krenim fired on Voyager in both Before and After and Year of Hell, but also the way it's lodged in there like that is very evocative of the torpedo that hits the Enterprise in Such Sweet Sorrow Part 2. Great Usave is an Andorian deity who was introduced in the 2004 non-canon DS9 story Paradigm, which was as part of the Worlds of DS9 Volume Volume 2. We see binars again, of course. Now, a level 10 containment field has been used many times before. Level 10 is the strongest, much like Warp 10. We saw it in Voyager in episodes like State of Flux, and also kind of on Voyager in Course Oblivion. Jellicoe, of course, getting an El cameo there. Now, Tysus gets affected by the radiation, but the doctor says, don't worry, just a week of Cerberusian, I have to pronounce that correctly, gene therapy should see him right. This harkens back to a season 1 episode of The Next Generation called Too Short a Season, in which Admiral Mark Jameson was using this to attempt to get younger, but it killed him. So let's just hope that perhaps the doctor's maybe made it work a little bit better in the meantime. Nova Squadron uses a Jaeger loop, but unfortunately the drones already know what they're going to do. So in fact, they go for the Boothby Supernova. Now, Boothby, we know very well, Ray Walston, first duty in the flesh. I miss Ray Walston. He was also, this is just a side bit, in one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations, The Stand, in which he played Glenn. There you are now. Michelle asks Zero, how do you feel? The fact that she's a Vulcan asking this makes me think straight away of Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home, when Spock is doing his work with the computer and he goes, how do you feel? We move on now to Brink. There's a character working with Essentia who's effectively a Vaunacat version of Lobot, that sort of cyborg from The Empire Strikes Back. Voyager A using the same door chimes as the original Voyager, I like that. Now, Starfleet will disavow the away team if they are caught. Straight away, chain of command, when Picard, Worf and Dr. Crusher are lured by the Cardassians behind enemy lines, and Picard, of course, is captured. Starfleet can't accept that they were on an official mission, because that could plunge Starfleet and the Cardassian Empire into war. Same thing going on here. So you can bet your bottom that these kids are not protected by the Solanas Convention. Wesley says his brain feels like it's been used as a Nausicaan punching bag, but then in the prison break, speaking of punching bags, Rock smashes out the back wall, and straight away, are we all thinking of Scotty, Braken, Kirk, Spock and McCoy out of prison? What's the matter with you? Do you not know a jailbreak when you see one? Touch of Grey lets us know that it's been 14 years since the events of Caretaker, and we get a lovely little play of the Voyager theme, which, considering the show is not Star Trek Voyager Part 2, even though perhaps you could be forgiven for thinking it is, we don't hear the theme an awful lot, so it's lovely when it's used like this. The Doctor says Wesley has been exposed to a lot of neurolytic shock. Now, that's been used so much throughout Star Trek, but makes me think of Endgame and the neurolytic pathogen that effectively took down the Borg. Wesley, of course, is using a cortical stimulator on the side of his head. We've already discussed, of course, the Doctor's interesting attempt to pretend to be Dreadnought, but then, in fairness, as he says, I'm a doctor, not a covert operative. When the Doctor is shot and he's dying, he goes, the rest is silence, which are the last words of Prince Hamlet in Shakespeare's play. Let us not forget that Picard, when attempting to convince Q that humanity was, pretty decent, quotes Hamlet as well back in the TNG Season 1 episode, Hyde and Q. On to Ouroboros Part 1, we get up the technobabble, which of course Star Trek is famous for. Dal using his Protostar comm badge, of course, which we remember from Season 1. Chakotay is employing some old Maquis tricks to evade sensors. I could do this all day. Now that's not technically a Star Trek reference, that just makes me think straight away of Captain America, both in the Chris Evans version and of course the Hayley Atwell version from Multiverse of Madness. A Prometheus-class ship is shown in this sort of flash-forward flashback hovering over Solum. If you think back to Season 1, Episode 16, the episode Preludes, when Essentia is attempting to remind the Diviner of how they came to be where they are, we also get that same artwork style as well of a Prometheus-class ship over Solum. And of course, Jankum in this episode is measuring in Cochrane's. Ouroboros Part 2, we have temporal shields getting a reference. Of course, let's think back to things like we have Year of Hell, we have Future's End, we have Relativity. Once more into the Breach. They do love their Shakespeare in this series, don't they? We see Cetacean Ops again with Gillian the Whale. Absolutely love that. Now, of course, Beverly Crusher herself being an Easter egg, but also that plaque sitting on her desk, an honorary citizen of Cor Carolee 5. This goes all the way back to the Next Generation episode Allegiance, when Picard has been kidnapped. Now he's locked in a cell with a he thinks, a Bolian Starfleet cadet called Mitena Harrow, who has knowledge of the time that Crusher helped to cure the Fyrox plague on Core Caroli 5. This was, however, classified. Forgot the word for a second. It was classified, so she shouldn't have had knowledge of that, which is how Picard knew that she was an imposter. We see this plaque as well in Star Trek Picard on the Ilios in the episode The Next Generation. We see that she is in England, as evidenced by both the Shard sitting behind her as well, and is that Canary Wharf? I will admit my London geography, not amazing, but she's definitely in London. And of course, Jack Crusher making a cameo. Very happy about that. Dr. Erin, of course, teaching the class on temporal mechanics, and of course, First Contact Day itself being a massive egg, which leads us straight to the Mars attack, the ships, of course, that were used to attack Mars, the synths, which get a reference as well, the uniforms making a return, Jellicoe himself appearing again. We get reference to the Romulan evacuation. We get reference to Picard not taking it well at all, which of course we know he didn't. We get an explanation as to the comm badges and what happened there. There is a moment where, as the cadets are just sitting there before they get summoned by Janeway, Zero goes, "It was in our grasp." He's actually quoting Gul Dukat here, of all people, which is a bit worrying. Just as the Federation fleet overpowers the Dominion fleet in Sacrifice of Angels, and starships pour on their way to DS9, they have to evacuate DS9, and you can see Dukat going, "It was in our grasp." Interesting character to quote there, Zero. The USS Prodigy has the registration NCC 81084. Writer Aaron Walke's birthday is August in 1984, so there you are. And Janeway sure does love giving field commissions, doesn't she? I mean, think of our Marquis crew, who were all given field commissions in Star Trek Voyager, and of course our crew are all given field commissions to ensigns here. Folks, thank you so much. Thank you for watching our videos for the ups and downs for Prodigy Season 2. Thank you for supporting myself. Thank you for supporting Ellie. We really, really appreciate it. We hope that you've enjoyed all of these episodes. I suppose this now sets the template for what we're going to do when we get, big season blocks like this in the future. I do hope that, all future Trek will revert back to weekly, but look, now we have a precedent. You are awesome, you are wonderful. Remember, that's not it when it comes to content. We have an interview with Will Wheaton himself available on YouTube right now. We have more interviews coming up we have the Hagemans, we have Aaron Walke. As of the release of this, I can reveal that we have a few more Prodigy people coming down the pipeline as well. I can't say who yet, but we have a few more. You are awesome, you are wonderful. Everyone who is going to Mission Las Vegas next week, myself and Ellie will be there, so please come up and say hello. Let's hang out, let's talk Star Trek. Do you like Star Trek? I kind of like Star Trek. Yeah, we might talk some Star Trek. You're wonderful. We will be back with the retro ups and downs before too long. We are going to take a little bit of a breather just while we regroup and kind of, set up what's coming next. If you are at San Diego Comic-Con this weekend, have a wonderful time. You are awesome. You are brilliant. Whatever is coming next for Star Trek Prodigy, we hope that you've enjoyed these last 2 seasons. We certainly have. Thank you so much, everyone who made this show. You deserve all of the praise. I leave yous go. That's probably long enough to be sitting down watching a video of me yapping on. You're brilliant. Live long and prosper, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks very much.